Hello and welcome to this live broadcast where I'm going to be talking about nagging. So, my big question for you today is whether nagging about revision is ruining your relationship with your teen. And we're going to talk about it. So, if you're watching live, please give me a like or say hello in the comments below. If you're not watching live, please do say hello as well. I'd love to hear from you. So my name is Lucy Parsons. I run Life More Extraordinary Academic Coaching, where we help families in the exam years with things like revision and how to talk to each other so they don't all fall out with each other, and basically to have more success with less stress. And nagging is one of the big things that I hear from parents that it kind of really hurts in the exam years. So I wanted to address this and help you with this today. So in the comments, let me know whether you hate watching your teen fritter away their time because you know their exams are coming up and it just worries you and stresses you out so much that you can see them not really taking things seriously enough and not taking enough action. So give me a yes in the comments if this is something that you really struggle with and really hate. So I think what most parents find is that they find that they really have no choice but to nag because their children just aren't taking action. It doesn't work kind of taking a step back and letting them find their own way. They're really left with no choice to nag because fundamentally, as a parent, you love them and you want the best for them. And, you know, if that makes you a little bit unpopular for a little while, then you're willing to take that. But it doesn't stop it from being painful. So give me a yes in the chat if you agree with that. Okay, so let's get into this and see how we can help you. So let's first talk about why you end up nagging in the first place and why your teen just doesn't do the work. So the first thing I think is really common is that your teen has a very different perception of time and how it passes from the perception that you probably have. And this is simply down to the difference in your ages. So I remember back being a teenager and being a child, and it felt like an hour was forever and a day was an eternity. And, 3 months sounded like, that was never going to end. At the age of 14, 15, 16, in particular, our young people really feel time differently to how we feel time when we're over 40. And it's very hard to forget that because we know, because of our life experience, our busy lives, the number of years that we've lived, that time goes really fast and their exams are going to be here before they know it. And all the time that they're wasting now could have made a really, really, really big difference to them. So if you think that's something that might be going on for your child, give me a yes in the chat, in the comments, if you think that them having a different perception of time may be a problem. Okay, so the second thing that I see going on is that in a lot of schools, students don't develop very good study routines in years 7 to 9. So this often looks like not very much homework being set, which means that any homework that is done can be done in quite a laid back kind of way. And then when year 10 and 11 hit, and certainly in the sixth form it gets even tougher, students just don't really know what's hit them. They haven't got the experience. They don't know what to do to structure their time and just get on with things. They're a bit like a rabbit in the headlights. So if you think you can relate to this and can see this going on with your child, then let me know in the comments. Just say study routines in the comments if you think that is something that your child is really struggling with because they don't have the background experience with that. Okay, the next thing is a lack of clear expectations. And I think a lot of families fall into this. So you as a parent might have a really clear idea of what you think your child should be doing in terms of studying, but have you actually made that vision clear to your child? Have you communicated it to them? So if you're expecting them to be revising in a certain way or revising for a certain amount of time, showing a particular kind of attitude, are you just expecting them to do that? Or are you talking to them about it and what good looks like and all of that kind of thing? You know, in a lot of ways, it's very unreasonable to expect our children to do something, or anybody to do anything, without really making it clear what our expectations are. So if you think that might be a problem for you, please put expectations in the comments, and please, if you think that applies to you, don't beat yourself up, because it's a really, really common mistake, but it's something that I'm going to talk to you about how to put right in a minute. Okay, the fourth reason why nagging happens in the first place is that your teenager is probably much more interested in other aspects of teenage life, like their Xbox, or maybe having a romantic relationship, or just being on social media, or something like that, or maybe even having a job. So if you think they're more interested in other aspects of teenage life than their studies, just put teen life in the comments as well. And then the final reason I want to talk to you about for the nagging is that your expectations are higher than what they're developmentally able to deliver. So if you've got this vision of a study routine and them happily getting on with it without you having to remind them or help them or whatever, do you actually think that they have reached a stage in their development where they're able to do that? Because the teenage brain, it's going through a lot in that phase of their growth and development. And a lot of teenage brains, not all, but a lot of teenage brains are very challenged by executive functioning. So things like planning and sticking to the plan and all that kind of thing. So it can be a problem if your expectations are higher than what they are actually able developmentally to deliver. So let me know in the chat, put development, if you think that could be a problem for you. I can see all your comments, and thank you so much for popping them in there. It's interesting to see what you're all saying. Okay, so we've covered why you end up nagging in the first place, and I can see that teen life is one of the very big ones, but the other ones are coming up for you as well. So what can you do to improve the situation and hopefully stop nagging altogether? Well, we're going to go through a 3-step process. So step number 1 is having a reality check conversation with your teenager. So this should cover some of the points that I've already talked about. So really look at how long it is until exams. Like, lay it out, get a piece of paper, get a calendar, and show them, you know, this is how long it is, this is the school holidays you've got, these are the other commitments you've got, like school exchanges, or, you know, whatever else is going on in life, and show it to them on a piece of paper. And this has been done with various clients of mine in the past, and that it's like a light bulb goes off in their head, and they're like, okay, I see now. I see now why you might be a little bit stressed and worried about this. So the next thing is to make your expectations really clear. Now, this isn't about laying down the law, but it's just about saying, you know, with exams this far away, reasonably, you should be doing this amount of work, and this is what the work should look like. So you have told them what you're expecting to see. And if that is really clear, you have more kind of comeback when they're not doing it than if you haven't made that clear in the first place. The next thing is about setting boundaries. So a lot of you have mentioned teen life. And so it's just really about talking about boundaries and balance between all the things they like to do and all the things that they need to do, and what is reasonable there, really. And you need to have a good idea about what you think is reasonable as well, what you think is healthy, what you think is balanced. And then the final point here is to think about how they'd like to put all of this into place. So they really need to have some buy-in into the process about how to put it all into place, okay? And this is really important because them having a say in how it's done is going to make them much more likely to actually carry it out. But the biggest thing I want to say about all of this is that it needs to be done with empathy. Okay, you know, I can tell all of you are saying, lots of you are saying about teen life, you know, the thing about their perception of time, that's just a matter of empathy. It's a matter of thinking back to what it was like being that age and your perception of time. It's a matter of thinking about what it was like to be that age and to be obsessed with boys or whatever it was, or gaming or whatever it was, you know, the obsession that you had at that age and what that was truly like. And if you can really get in touch with that and really empathise with that, you're going to find it much, much easier to get through to your child, because they'll know that you're feeling what they're feeling and aren't just trying to override all of those things that are going on for them. Okay, so that's step one, the reality check. Step two is making sure they've got the study skills to succeed. So one of the saddest things I see in the work that I do is all the nagging and cajoling to revise and do their homework and study and all that kind of thing that goes on without the students actually having the study skills they need to do what they're being asked to do. And schools revision and without actually telling the students how to revise. Parents will expect students to revise without actually checking in to make sure they really do know how to revise. And the really sad thing about this is that the good students will struggle through, but really doubting themselves, maybe feeling quite a strong sense of shame because they feel this huge expectation to be doing this thing called revision, but they don't know how. And then other students, maybe with less confidence or I don't know, what less kind of willingness to please, just won't do it because they're like, I don't want to feel those difficult, hard things that trying to revise when I don't know how makes me feel. They may not be able to put all that into words themselves, but that's basically what's going on at a subconscious level for them. So your big step as a parent, if this is going to work, is making sure they know how to revise, that they've got the study skills, they've got the time management skills, they've got all those skills they need to carry out this plan. Okay, the third step is to check in. So step one was the reality check, step two was making sure they've got the study skills, and step three is the check-in. And there's a right way and a wrong way to do the check-in. So the wrong way is finishing your hard and stressful day at work, being tired, being hungry, being a bit stressed out, seeing your teenager playing on the games console yet again and saying, why aren't you revising? Or what revision have you done today? Okay, that is just going to escalate. That's going to, they're going to feed off your negative stressed energy. They're going to feed off the way that you've asked that question. And it's just going to spiral into a tantrum and a fallout. And that is the last thing that you want to happen. The right way to do it is to do it when you're calm, when you're not hangry. And hands up, I get hangry. Anybody who knows me will tell you that I get hangry. If you're not sure, hangry is hungry and angry, or angry because you're hungry. Is one of the things that happens to me. But just be calm, be in a good place where everybody is ready to have a civilized conversation. And sometimes you can even pre-plan these things and say, right, okay, we've set up this schedule, let's check in with each other on Saturday morning or on Sunday afternoon or whenever it is that works for you. Or it can just be when you're feeling relaxed in the week. So it doesn't have to be pre-scheduled, but the key thing, it's done in the right way without that kind of accusative kind of tone. It's done in a supportive and curious way where you actually are communicating that to them that you want to support and help them. Okay, so that was step number 2, or the second thing I wanted to talk to you about today, which is what you can do to improve the situation and hopefully stop nagging altogether. I'm just turning over the page of my notes. So the third thing I wanted to talk to you about was problems you might hit along the way. So I've hinted at this already, but one of the things that you might find is that your teen isn't developmentally able to take on full responsibility, or the level of responsibility you want them to be able to take on. So I know I was on a coaching call last night with the parents in the Extraordinaries Club, and there are plenty of parents there who don't want to have anything to do with it. They just want all this stuff to seamlessly get on and to be able to have happy downtime with their teenagers. And I completely get that. I don't want to be doing homework with my children, but sometimes it just has to be done. And I think the thing here is just recognising that is not always realistic, okay? Development, and sometimes that might be because of neurodiversities such as dyspraxia or ADHD, which make this executive planning, focusing attention, all that kind of thing even more difficult for neurodiverse students. So you have to work with the child that you have rather than keeping on wishing that they were different from how they are. So it's about being really realistic about things. The second problem you might hit is that they look like they're doing the work, but it's the wrong kind of work. So I did a Facebook Live on Saturday, which you can go back to and watch, which talked about the right kind of work and how you can get more bang for your buck from revision, like by getting more out of your revision but doing less of it. But the key thing here is knowing what to look for. Now, things you should be looking for are whether they're actually testing themselves, so that's testing their knowledge and their recall and things like past papers, and whether their marks are increasing. A lot of parents, in my experience, want to see reams and reams of revision notes. Now, that's not going to suit everybody's way of revising. So, and it can actually be quite a big time waster for some students. So what you need to be doing is making sure that they're testing themselves, and that testing is resulting in improved results. And that's how you know whether the work they're doing is actually working. Some students will be very resistant to doing the right kind of work though, so just bear that in mind. And then the other problem that you might encounter along the way is that they're not motivated by schoolwork or revision. So those of you who've said that teen life is a big problem, this may be a big thing for you. So we've got, I did a recent podcast episode with a motivation expert called Sharath Jeevan. That is a great place to